Good evening, and thank you everyone for joining us for Congressman Bobby Scott's telephone town hall. If you remain on the line, we will get started shortly. Thank you.
The Access Live event is currently in music hold and will start momentarily. If you would like to ask a question during the event, press star 3 on your telephone keypad at any time. The Access Live event is currently in music hold and will start momentarily. If you would like to ask a question during the event, press star 3 on your telephone keypad at any time.
Good evening, and thank you to everyone for joining us for Congressman Bobby Scott's telephone town hall. My name is Austin, and I'm going to be the moderator for tonight's event. If you would like to ask a question, please hit star 3 at any point during the call, and you will be added to the queue. We are eager to get to as many questions as possible. However, we do have limited time tonight, and we have hundreds of people joining us as we speak. So we ask for you to be brief when asking your questions and to be mindful of the clock. Now, before we begin the question and answer portion of the evening, I'm going to hand it over to Congressman Scott for his opening remarks. Congressman Scott?
Thank you, Austin, and I want to thank everyone for joining me for the telephone town hall to talk about the government shutdown. As Austin mentioned, please press star 3 if you'd like to be added to the queue to ask a question. And before we get started, I do want to apologize for my voice. I'm getting over a cold, so my voice is a little raspy, but hopefully we can get through it. Now, I realize many people on the call tonight have questions and concerns, and I share many of those concerns and frustrations. We are now on a day 8 of a full government shutdown, and as our first government shutdown since 2019, when President Trump was president before. House Republicans have been on vacation since September 19th. And let me repeat that. On September 19th, the Speaker sent the House home, and we did not come back prior to the government shutdown on October 1st, and we haven't reconvened since. We're supposed to be in session this week, but the Speaker canceled this week's vote, and we assume we're going to come back next week, but that's unclear at this point. Now, House Democrats returned to Washington last week before the shutdown to see if there was any way to divert the shutdown, but regrettably, the were not in town. This Friday will mark the first lapse in pay for workers in the federal government. And next week, our military may miss a paycheck. This is completely unacceptable. It's unconscionable that the Republicans won't even come into session so that we can address this crisis. Congressional Democrats are ready to negotiate a bipartisan government funding deal that protects the health care of American people. The cost of living is far too high, especially the cost of health care. President Trump and the Congressional Republicans' so-called ugly bill that is now the big ugly law made things even worse by slashing funding for Medicaid and failing to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. We're now already seeing the impacts of that law. Rural health facilities are already closing, including several in Virginia, and millions of Americans are seeing their health care premiums skyrocket. Without action by President Trump and Congress, many of the Affordable Care Act tax credits that help lower costs of premiums will expire soon, and over 320,000 Virginians rely on these tax credits to afford their health care and pay their bills. But now we're getting misinformation, so let me begin by getting the record straight. First of all, the tax credits are designed to set a maximum of your salary of 8.5% of what you're expected to pay on your health care premiums. Obviously, at some point, the 8.5% will cover the sticker price of the premium, so you get no more help. So somebody saying that people over $500,000 salary are getting a tax credit would assume they're getting a $42,500 policy, and policies generally are in the $15,000 to $25,000 range. Undocumented immigrants are not eligible for tax credits or Medicaid, and if the Republicans don't pass an extension of the tax credits, premiums on average on the Affordable Care Act marketplace will double. Meanwhile, instead of working to find a solution, President Trump has posted a regrettably racist deepfake video of Democratic leaders. He canceled funding for projects in Democratic states, and the administration has threatened to fire even more federal workers, the latest in a constant attack against the federal workforce since he returned in January. He has threatened to fire more if we don't reopen government. What he has not said is that he would stop firing people if we did reopen government. So that even if we did reopen government, there's no guarantee that he would stop firing people. And just this week, he threatened to violate the Government Employee Fair Treatment Act, a bill he signed into law during his first term, and refused back pay for furloughed workers. The law is clear. Furloughed workers are to receive back pay at the conclusion of the government shutdown. Our federal workers provide invaluable service to the American people despite the Trump administration's contempt for them. Our troops, federal law enforcement officials, Coast Guard, transportation workers, food and work safety workers, all federal employees deserve better from our government. As the top Democrat on the Committee on Education and Workforce, I demanded that committee hearings be held so that we can investigate reported violations of law by federal departments in our jurisdiction. Departments of Health and Human Services and Agriculture used official channels to post partisan messages on their website blaming Democrats for the shutdown and potential violation for the Hatch Act, a government-wide ethics law. In addition, at the Department of Education, automatic out-of-office replies for furloughed career staff were reportedly changed without their knowledge or consent to include partisan language blaming Democratic senators for the lapse in government funding, a potential violation of criminal law that prohibits coercion of political activity. I also referred this specific matter to the Department of Justice for a criminal investigation in conjunction with the Judiciary Committee Ranking Member Jamie Raskin. The administration's use of government resources for partisan politics is unacceptable. A government shutdown affects everyone. WIC, Women, Infants, and Children's Nutrition Program, is a federal program that provides nutritious food for nearly 7 million pregnant, postpartum, and breastfeeding women, infants, and children up to 5 years old, including almost 40% of all infants in the United States. The cost effectiveness of WIC, coupled with its quality of life improvements for participants, makes it one of the country's most successful and popular federal nutrition programs. As part of my oversight responsibilities as the ranking member, I encourage the Department of Agriculture to ensure minimal disruptions at WIC during this government shutdown. Thankfully, they have responded. They've allocated money to the WIC program. They have committed to reimburse states if they fund the program. And recently, we haven't gotten any details on it, and I'm not sure about the legality of it, They said they're going to use tariff money to keep the program going. To prevent uncertainty in the future, I introduced a bill with my colleague, Representative Suzanne Bonamici from Oregon, to make funding for WIC programs automatic, which means that every woman and child who qualifies for WIC will receive the services regardless of the shutdown or arbitrary levels. This would put WIC on the same level that SNAP and Medicaid is what we call mandatory spending, and not on par with Section 8 funding, which is discretionary, where if the money runs out, it just runs out, and then you can't sign up for it. Section 8 is so bad that it's hard to even sign up for it. The waiting list is so long. But in WIC, we have made sure that the funding is sufficient so that everyone who qualifies gets it, and we want to eliminate any confusion in the future by converting that into a mandatory program. Hopefully that we can get that done. If you have any questions about the shutdown and how it can affect your family or your community, you can visit my website at Bobby Scott, all one word, bobbyscott.house.gov, /shutdown FAQ. Shutdown FAQ, all one word. And now Republicans currently control the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives, and it's incumbent for them to govern responsibly. Democrats already fund the government and are ready to protect the health care of Americans, so it's time to get together and work together and end this shutdown. So please hit *3 if you'd like to be added to the queue for questions, and I look forward to dealing with the questions that you may have. So, Austin, what's the first question?
Yes, as the Congressman said, just hit *3 if you have a question, and we are going to do our best to get to as many people as possible. So if you are called, please keep your question brief and limit yourself to one question. First, we have Pam from Portsmouth. Pam, you are on with Congressman Scott.
Oh, I thought I have to say my question. Oh, hi. My question was, if a government shutdown occurs, what services and federal programs would be affected? How would it impact federal employees and benefits like Social Security, Medicare, and what should individuals do to prepare financially and logistically?
Well, the essential services will continue. And what is essential is a little bit vague, but things like air traffic control, law enforcement, and things like that will continue. Federal employees that are not considered essential will be furloughed without pay, but according to the law, they should expect to get their back pay that they missed when the government reopens. Things like Social Security and other programs that are mandatory programs, SNAP benefits and things like that, will continue. So it's kind of a hit and miss, but essential services will continue. Thank you for the question.
Next, we are going to move to David from Newport News. David, you are on with Congressman Scott.
Hey, thanks for taking my question. I think you've kind of answered it, but I was really just kind of wondering about back pay for federal employees that are furloughed, and maybe in particular employees at NASA.
Well, if you're furloughed, the government fair treatment of government employees, that the legislation that Trump himself signed a few years ago requires reimbursement for the time you lost. If you are an essential employee and you're working but not getting paid, you'll get your pay when the government reopens, and those that were furloughed will get pay. That would cover people at NASA. Now, the president has suggested that he's got some legal interpretation that he may not have to follow the law, but I think any agreement to reopen government would include a guarantee that government employees will get their back pay. People should not lose weeks of pay because Congress couldn't get its act together.
Next, we are going to move to Philip from Portsmouth. Philip, you are on with Congressman Scott.
Yes, sir. How you doing this evening?
Thank you.
Real quick, I'm a 100% disabled veteran, and during the shutdown, I was wondering if I would be affected via pay-wise, via services, not only in Hampton Roads but across the nation.
In terms of any benefits that you're getting, those benefits should be on pretty much automatic payment. So if you're on disability or something like that, your checks should continue. The Veterans Administration medical facilities and clinics will remain operational, and so the hospital will remain open. The VA is expected to continue to process veterans' benefits, but some other programs like educational and training benefits or support for veteran-owned benefits or maybe even assistance for homeless veterans may be in jeopardy, but most of the benefits should continue.
Next, we are going to move to Sheila from Norfolk. Sheila, you are on with Congressman Scott.
Yes, good evening, and thanks for the phone invite. I hope we can do this again at least twice or three times a year. My question to you, sir, is that I was wondering for the Affordable Act Health Care Plan that they're trying to counsel out for us. I was wondering, can we put a referendum up to vote for the state subsidizing?
I couldn't. Could you restate the question? Could we do what?
Can we get for the Affordable Act Health Care Plan Medicaid? Can we get the state to come up with a referendum for Virginia so that we can get some of the funds from the lottery to help support us seniors on that health care plan that they're refusing to support the federal government? Do you think it's possible?
Having the states make up for the lack of tax credits has been suggested, but it just seems to me that under the circumstances, and you have to put this thing in perspective. When you have millions of people who lose their insurance because they can't afford it because the price went up so high, it just doesn't end right there. They will be uninsured. They will go to the hospital, show up at hospitals, and not pay. They will be in financial difficulties, but also the hospital will be in financial difficulty. So what they do is they charge everybody else a little more. There's a name for it. It's called cost shifting of indigent care. I mean, so people know what it is. And so all the uninsured people go to the hospital, don't pay, everybody else's insurance go up. So if you have employer-based policy, your employer may tell you, oh man, the insurance rates went up so high, I'm going to continue paying your health care, but I can't do much on salaries. And so everybody is affected. So hopefully the states might step in, but the overall cost of extending the credits for 10 years is in the $300 to $400 billion range. I mean, that's a lot, but you got to remember that the big ugly bill cost was in the $4 trillion range. That's 4,000 billion, and we're looking for 300 to 400 billion just for the health care. And those benefits go to people who are working, people who are working and trying to buy their insurance at an affordable rate. And when a lot of people stop buying insurance and become uninsured, it really puts a burden on the entire system. And I think one of the problems is that the Republicans apparently don't understand that as more and more people drop their insurance because they can't afford it, everybody else's insurance goes up. And hopefully they'll start seeing that. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene has publicly said that we have to do something because her adult children have just been notified that their insurance premiums will double if we don't do something. So thank you.
Next, we are going to move to an online question very quickly. Tia Online is asking, how long will funding for Social Security continue?
Social Security is not affected by the shutdown. It's what's called a mandatory funding, so it continues indefinitely. I mean, it's not affected by the shutdown. Now, some of the services at Social Security, signing up for Social Security, if you have some questions at Social Security, they may be a little more difficult to get, but getting your check every month will not be affected.
And as a reminder to everyone, if you have a question, please hit *3, and you will be added to the queue. Next, we are going to move to Brian from Norfolk. Brian, you are on with Congressman Scott.
Hey, Congressman. Thank you for your service, sir. How do you feel about Thomas Massey's bill to release the Epstein files?
You know, this has been such a distraction. Epstein is dead, and it has been a major distraction. There's some belief that this week's votes may have been canceled, not because anything to do with the shutdown, but because if we went into session, they would have to swear in Representative Grijalva, Representative-elect Grijalva, who was just elected to succeed her father from Arizona, who passed earlier this year. If she gets sworn in, the expectation is as soon as she took her hand off the Bible, she would take 2 steps to the left and sign the discharge petition, and would be the 218th critical vote to discharge the resolution to have a vote on releasing the Epstein files. I'd like to see us just vote to release them, get it over with, so we can get back to focused on health care and jobs, and the economy, criminal justice reform, education, and important issues. So I've signed the discharge petition, and hopefully when we reconvene, she will sign the discharge petition. We can get that out of the way and get back to work.
Thank you. Next, we are going to move to Angela from Newport News. Angela, you are on with Congressman Scott.
Thank you. Congressman Scott, stay the course. You have a full plate. My question is about Project 25. It seems that, and I've been researching it, the president has been using his executive orders to pass at least 37% of it so far. That leaves the rest of the book. I'm sure you guys have read it. Your aide, somebody has read it. What is left, and what next will they do that you see coming?
Well, a lot of what's in Project 2025 requires legislation. Regrettably, he hasn't waited for legislation, one of which was to abolish the Department of Education. That requires legislation, and I think everybody acknowledges that. But he has gone and fired half the people at the department, so they can't half do their jobs. So they've effectively eliminated a lot of the functions at the department. And so a lot of what he's doing is just firing people. And that's the way he's been implementing a lot of Project 2025. Some of the things, like he wants to get rid of the school lunches and things like that, that requires legislation. And he's obviously like a wrecking ball firing people, and that's most of what he's done to implement it. A lot of the regulatory agencies, like the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, he has eliminated. He's fired the commissioners at the EEOC. They don't have a quorum anymore. So he's done a lot of it just by firing people, so there's nobody there to do their jobs. We're trying to keep the appropriations going, and that's one of the challenges in getting the appropriations bills passed, not just reopening government, but also just funding government so it can keep going. But there are a lot of, and I've been focused on the parts in education, mostly in the Department of Education, school lunches, student loans, Pell Grants. They've been cutting back. They've cut back student loans and Pell Grants to the point where if you can't write some fairly big checks or come up with some money, if you need help going to medical school, you won't be able to go to medical school. That's been with the medical provider shortage. That's one area that's going to need that we need to address.
Next, we are going to move to William from Newport News. William, you are on with Congressman Scott.
Hello. My question is kind of specific. What's going to happen to the people who work at Dan Daniels' warehouse, the warehouse that supplies the soldiers' support uses? Are they expected to not get a paycheck coming up here soon?
I think most of that is staffed by military, so they would stay on the job. I haven't heard anything about that facility specifically, but my guess is that they would stay open. One, because they're military, and two, in support of the military. If you closed it, there would be a lot of things that would be difficult to do without the supplies and equipment and things that you get from the warehouse.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we are going to move to Courtney from Hampton. Courtney, you are on with Congressman Scott.
Hi, Congressman. Thank you for taking my question. I am an insurance broker, and so every day I have been getting calls regarding the premium tax credits and how soon it will take effect for it to affect their health insurance premium, especially with open enrollment right around the corner and auto renewals happening. How soon can, we expect to see the effect of, the premium tax credits changing and stopping with the government shutdown?
This is one of the problems is that the Republicans don't understand the system. They've said, well, the credits don't expire till December. We got plenty of time. You know that people are buying their insurance starting in November 1st.
Exactly.
You have to know what the price is. And so if we don't do anything by then, well, it's probably too late already, because if we restored all the credits right now, all of the insurance companies would have to change all their numbers, reprint all their forms, and everything else. I'm not sure they can do that in the 2 or 3 weeks left before people start buying their policies. But the effect goes in November 1st when people start buying their policies. And well, I'm sure you've seen the numbers. The most anyone can pay presently is 8.5% of their income, and about $50,000 or $60,000 for an individual. They don't get any more help, so they may jump from like $4,000 annual premium to $3,000 or $4,000 to like $8,000 overnight. And families, same thing, will double. And the percentage of your income that you pay tops out at 8.5%, but it goes down at the lowest income to 0. And those lowest incomes end up paying 1 or 2%. So a lot of people who are paying nothing now have to pay a little bit, and those kind of in the middle, most of the policies people will find that they double. And a lot of people, this is why they estimate that millions of people will lose their insurance. Many people will say, well, they just can't afford it and will decide not to buy insurance. Now, there's one thing that everyone who decides not to buy insurance, there's one thing they all have in common, and that is they're healthy. Because if they were sick, doesn't matter what it costs, they're going to pay the bill. They can't afford not to have insurance. And so as you pull out, as healthy people decide not to buy insurance, the ones that are left on average are sicker. And so on average, their premiums have to go up. And so the whole system starts falling apart unless we do something. And that's why it's so important that we do something right now and not wait 6 or 7 weeks until people start buying their policies. We need to do something right now.
Next, we're going to move to William from Norfolk. William, you are on with Congressman Scott.
Yes, good afternoon, Congressman Scott. My question is, I did have insurance, but I'm on a fixed income, but I no longer have it anymore because I am on a fixed income, and I've been trying to find a place that I can get insurance that I can afford. And I also wanted to ask a question in regards about the COVID shot that I've been seeing on the news. Do I have to go through my insurance to get one, or is it still accessible to everyone, sir?
The Center for CDC, Disease Control, has messed up the process, and the information coming out of the CDC is confusing. And so I can't answer the question. You may have to get a prescription. Some pharmacies may do it. Whether you qualify for insurance reimbursement is a little unclear. And so I would start by just calling the local. If you start with your doctor, that's where I'd start to see what you can do. Now, are you at the VA? Are you at the VA? Hello?
William, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes. I'm retired now. I collect my Social Security, and through my insurance, they don't know what it's going to be for 2026. And then I was looking at the news. It was a bit confusing in regards about just going to Walmart or somewhere to get a COVID shot.
No, the drugstores are a little confused. Some are giving you the shot, some are not. Do you get health care at the VA?
No, sir.
Just
regular. No, sir. Just regular insurance.
Talk to your doctor and see what he says.
Thank you so much, sir.
He or she, they will. They can give you guidance on it, and what they'll probably recommend it, and they might have to write a prescription.
All right. Thank you so much.
Start with your doctor. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next, we are going to move to Jacqueline from Portsmouth. Jacqueline, you are on with Congressman Scott.
Good evening, Congressman Scott. How you doing?
I'm doing okay.
That's good. My question for you is, I'm a people person, Democrat. I'm a Democrat, but right now the people in general is struggling, and I just need to know what can we do. I believe in what the air traffic controllers did, and they stand their ground, and I understand that. But even in people standing their ground, how can we help them? I don't know the marches and the picketing, but what can we do, just individual Democrats, to support just being?
The first line of defense would be to support your local food banks to make sure that they are staffed up, because there'll be the contributions to the food banks are not all that should be. They're doing okay, but they need more support. And other organizations Salvation Army and Red Cross and others that help people in distress. If you look through the various charities, a lot of churches are very helpful to make sure that they are supported so that when people come asking for help, that the help can be there.
Next, we are going to move to Rosalind from Newport News. Rosalind, you're on with Congressman Scott.
Good evening, Congressman Scott. My question is, President Trump has threatened to start firing federal employees if the shutdown doesn't end. Is he going to be able to do that, or can it be prevented? And how is he going to start the firing?
It's my view that he cannot legally do it, but as you know, that hadn't stopped him doing other stuff. The problem that he has in firing people is that if you fire people, you have to go through a process. You have to process them out. That requires somebody on staff in human resources to be there to do all the paperwork. Well, if it's a shutdown, that person ought to be at home. So who's going to process who's going to process the firing? There shouldn't be anybody there. It shouldn't be anybody there to do that kind of work. Now, the furlough, you can put people on furlough without all that confusion, but I don't believe that he can do it legally. And if he tries, that will probably be a condition for votes to reopen the government, that you call back everybody that you fired. But he has said he can do it. I don't think he can. But like I said, the legality hadn't slowed him up before. There'll be a lot of lawsuits involved in that if he tries.
Next, we are going to move to Kimberly from Hampton. Kimberly, you are on with Congressman Scott.
Good evening, Congressman Scott. My question is there a time frame for this particular government shutdown? Like, is there an anticipated time frame on how long this could possibly last? And what are the long-term repercussions other than just the health care being affected? What other things can we expect to come about because of this government shutdown?
Well, there's no magic to how long it will last. I think usually they last a day or two, a week. I think the longest is about 30-some days. And so there's no. But the problem we have is that the Republicans have shown no serious interest in avoiding the shutdown or reopening the government. In the House hadn't been in session for the 11 days before the shutdown. The House was essentially on vacation. No votes were scheduled. People were not in Washington, except for the Democrats right before the shutdown. We came back so that we would be able to try to negotiate something. So in the House, and we haven't been back since. So there's no serious. Even if we weren't doing anything, the fact that we were there means that we can be talking to each other. Maybe we could work something out. In the Senate, because of the filibuster, you cannot pass the resolution on a party line vote. You need at least 7 Democrats. Well, let's be serious. They've made no effort to get 7 votes. Getting 7 Democratic votes can't be that hard, but you can't. The public pronouncement is, we're not talking to the Democrats. Here's our bill. Y'all got to vote for it. Well, no, I don't think so. If you need 7 votes, you ought to work with somebody. The bill failed. They called it up again. It failed again. I think today it was defeated. I think this is at least the 5th time they have voted on the same bill, and it hadn't passed. I mean, that's not a serious effort to try to reopen government. And so, I mean, when the Republicans control the House, the White House, and the Senate, occasionally they'll need a Democratic vote, but it's just not that hard to shave off a few votes if you've worked with something. Now, there are a lot of problems that occur. One is you've heard a lot of them talk about what's called a clean CR. That is a continuing resolution that continues spending as we've been spending it. But what they have proposed is not a clean continuing resolution. It's a resolution based on the spending that we had back in March and December, minus the big ugly bill, minus some rescissions, minus the money he didn't want to spend in the blue states, minus projects like Aberdeen Gardens, had a $20 million grant. He just canceled it. I mean, if there is going to be a continuing resolution, there has to be some assurance that he will continue spending the money as it's been appropriated. One problem we have is if we agree to something, that they need Democratic votes, they can come around and either by simple executive action or on a rescission that can be done on a party line vote with no Democrats, they just change the agreement. So there has to be some kind of mechanism. I'm not sure they're going to agree to actually spend what's been appropriated. You also have a couple other little problems, whether or not you're going to pay furloughed workers. That's got to be in there. Then you get to health care. So they've shown no interest in even sitting down and negotiating. They say, well, if you reopen government, we'll sit down. Well, they weren't negotiating after the House passed a bill on September 11th and then went home. They could have been negotiating those 11 days. Nothing. They could have been negotiating, or at least begin negotiations to show they're serious. Nothing. So until they're serious about negotiation, I'm not sure when it's going to open. Now, there are a couple of things that kind of speed up the process. One is that government workers put pressure on legislators saying they can't take it anymore, they got to get paid. And that puts pressure on the system. The other is air traffic controllers specifically saying it's a high-pressure business, and they're not coming to work with the additional pressure of not being paid and the airline system being messed up. That was the precipitating factor that ended the last major shutdown. There's some things that can happen, but at this point, the way the Republicans are acting, the House not even coming to work, and the Senate just taking another vote on the exact same bill they defeated 5 times already, is not in a serious attempt to reopen government. And so until they actually get to a serious attitude, I'm not sure how long this could last.
Next, we are going to move to Jackie from Norfolk. Jackie, you are on with Congressman Scott.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for taking my call. My worries, I am my mother's legal guardian. She is disabled, 72 years old, also on Medicaid and Medicare, and receives military benefits from an ex-husband. So I'm retirement benefits. I'm calling to see how will all of this or any of this, will it affect my mother with her being 72 years old and also disabled?
The Medicaid and Medicare benefits should not adversely be affected. If she's on disability, those checks should be forthcoming. So I don't see any of her benefits that you've mentioned being in jeopardy. Some services may be in jeopardy. I understand that telehealth, some telehealth services may not be available. But in terms of the basic Medicaid, Medicare, and disability checks, those should continue.
Will the PACE program be affected?
I'm not sure how they're funded. If they're funded through Medicaid and Medicare, that they should be able to continue. And if they have separate funding, that may be affected. But I think they're mostly paid through Medicaid and Medicare. So hopefully they're not affected. If they are, let me know, and we'll see if we can't see if they can rearrange some money to make sure they stay open.
Next, we're going to move to Khalil from Newport News. Khalil, you are on with Congressman Scott.
Hi, Congressman Scott. I have a hard question to ask you. With all of the courts and the Supreme Court making decisions and Congress making decisions, but Trump is still doing what he wants to do instead of following Congress and the Supreme Court and the courts, what is the plan to do about that if he keeps doing this?
Could you say that again? I'm sorry.
With all of the stuff with the courts, with Supreme Court and Congress that you guys have passed, or the courts have said no to Trump, but he has done it anyways. What is the plan if he keeps ignoring Congress and the courts?
Right. Actually, we don't have much of a plan. Part of it is we have 3 independent branches of government. The legislative branch would have to step in and, through oversight and passing laws, do something. There are ways. There are a lot of things that can be done, but one of the problems we've had is that the majority in Congress have expressed no interest in even asking questions about anything he's doing. So the legislative branch has been essentially useless in this process. He has been very delicate in dealing with the courts and avoiding finding himself or the administration in contempt. And the courts have been a little delicate in laying down the law and finding what I think is activity that should be found in contempt. They have not found him in contempt of court. They have not found that he has violated a court order yet. When that happens, the court will just issue an order, and the public opinion, the legislative branch, will have to let its views known, and lawyers within the executive branch, there are checks, like I said, there are checks and balances all over the place. If a lawyer misrepresents something to a court, that's the kind of thing where you could lose your law license. And the law license authorities across the country have got to step up and just revoke people's license to practice law if they're participating in contempt of court. I think that would get a lot of people's attention. But we haven't gotten to that, and hopefully to the scenario you have suggested, and hopefully there are enough people in the administration that don't want to be there that we don't get there.
We have a little under 10 minutes left, so we're going to try to get to as many questions as possible with our remaining time. Next, we have Damon from Norfolk. Damon, you are on with Congressman Scott.
Hello, Congressman. Thank you for this platform. we have right now baby boomers taking care of baby boomers. You have the elderly that are at home with their children, and yet, especially Alzheimer's patients, and they're trying to take care of their parents, but yet when there comes to a point where they're not medically, they're not able sometimes to do it, but yet there are elderly facilities that are closing down because of Medicaid or whatever is happening out there. What is going to happen if facilities are not getting the Medicaid or Medicare, and when they're changing the rules and in that dynamic when there is nowhere for the elderly to go, and you still have baby boomers taking care of their parents as they get older? How is that going to work? How is that going to happen? What changes will make that work where the elderly, as they get older, you have a 75-year-old taking care of a 95-year-old. What's going to happen with that when these places are closing down because of the loss of Medicaid and Medicare?
Well, this is one of the things that the cutbacks in Medicaid, people don't think it affects anybody but a small portion of the population. Actually, most of the Medicaid money goes to most of the enrollees are, low income individuals, a lot of children, but most of the money in Medicaid goes to senior citizens who, if they weren't broke when they got to the nursing home, were broke pretty soon thereafter and got onto Medicaid. That's where most of the money goes. And a lot of people who lose their Medicaid under this big ugly bill will be people in nursing homes. And so either you don't get into a nursing home, or you got to come home. If you do the arithmetic and look at how many people they estimate, 10 million or so, are going to lose their Medicaid, and the amount of money, $900 billion, that they're losing, that's about $90,000 apiece. You can't run up numbers like that without hitting a lot of people in nursing homes. And so the people you're talking about are the ones that can get hammered if we don't turn around these Medicaid cuts. The other thing that you've inferred is that a lot of these facilities are closing. So even if you didn't get hit directly with premium increases, you're affected. Rural hospitals can't survive with these Medicaid cuts. In fact, they had to put a $50 billion, $10 billion a year for 10 years provision in there to help rural hospitals. Unfortunately, the groups representing rural hospitals said, and that's a drop in the bucket compared to what they're going to lose in Medicaid payments. And so a lot of them are going to close. 3 facilities in Virginia are already slated to close. So even if you've got nice insurance, there won't be a hospital to go to. If you have a stroke or an automobile accident, you may have to drive an extra hour to get to the next hospital. Well, that's life and death. So everybody is affected. And if you've got 10 million people newly uninsured going to the hospital not paying, everybody's insurance goes up a little bit to cover the cost shifting of indigent care. So as your question suggests, everybody is affected by these cuts. People in nursing homes, senior citizens in nursing homes are particularly at risk. And so everybody has an interest crisis.
Next, we are going to move to Al from Newport News. Al, you are on with Congressman Scott.
Congressman Scott, thank you for the great job you're doing today. I have a question. The president, to become president, Trump has to sign an oath that he would preserve, protect, defend the Constitution of the United States. He seems to be running roughshod over that, and he's also assuming powers that are reserved for the Congress, like taxes and levying taxes and duties, which are tariffs. So he has basically taken powers away and using them that belong to Congress. And it seems to me the Republicans ought to be concerned about the separation of powers and that how this shift is occurring. So I'm wondering if you have any.
If you remember when we did NAFTA, that was a huge congressional vote because Congress had to vote on it. He's implementing tariffs, declaring some non-existent emergency, and assuming powers. Unless Congress steps up, he will just assume the powers. Now, it's not the first time Congress kind of gives up powers. I think people are aware that only Congress can declare war, but we haven't declared war since World War II. But all these little excursions and all that, we just kind of go along with it, don't say anything, and so the president kind of just assumes the power. He has implemented these tariffs. Congress doesn't say anything, and so here we are. If Congress were to say, no, you can't do that, we could put an end to it. But until Congress steps up, he'll get away with it. And Congress acts as a group, not as individuals. And so when the majority takes a position, that is the position of the House or the position of the Senate. And like I said, the majority in the House and Senate don't want to even ask any questions.
And we have time for one more question. I'm going to move to Stephanie from Hampton. Stephanie, you are on with Congressman Scott.
Yes, hello, sir. My question is, how is President Trump able to send troops to different cities, and how does he have power to do that? And I'm wondering if he plans to send troops here to Newport News or Hampton.
Well, the power he has without the authority of the governor. Now, the governor is commander-in-chief of the National Guard. Governor can't do what he wants, but I mean, he's the commander-in-chief. There are lawsuits. He's been trying to send them to Portland, Oregon. He was going to send the Oregon National Guard. The governor of Oregon said no. He's going to send the California Guard. The court said no. And he's going to, over the objection of the California governor, he's going to send the, I think, Texas National Guard. And they're on the way, and we may be there already. And the courts have been slow to act. The courts will have the final say. I don't think, there are a lot the president can do in an emergency. And when there are emergencies, you don't want a lot of red tape and confusion. You want somebody to act. But you just can't make up stuff, make up an emergency, and declare there's an emergency, so I have these new powers. That's what he did with the tariffs. I think there has to be some factual basis to your declaration of an emergency, and that's what they're in court arguing over now. And the courts will decide ultimately whether he has that authority. Most of the places he's sending them, I don't think it's even close. He does not have that authority. But the courts have got to step up and say something.
Thank you. So unfortunately, we are now out of time. We had a lot of great questions tonight. Before I hand it back to Congressman Scott for closing comments, I want to remind everyone that you can go to bobbyscott.house.gov to sign up for our e-newsletter, where you will receive important updates from our office on the government shutdown, as well as information about future town hall events. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Congressman Scott for his closing comments.
Well, thank you, Austin. I want to thank everybody that participated. This has been very helpful to me to get a sense of what people are concerned about and their questions, and so we're gonna continue doing these on a frequent basis. Make sure you sign up so you'll get notification in advance. So thank everyone for participating, and this will end the telephone town hall. Thank you so much.